and not the important channel I actually need. Cool. Right, and I want pinned messaging here. Okay. Part 1. Let's dump that in here. Where's my chat gone? It's hiding. Part 1. There's part 2. Pesh is officially banned from joining the screen share part of the voice chat from his PC because we have determined that definitely causes my end to get disconnected. For whatever magical reason that Discord happens, it definitely disconnects me. So the answer to that question is, as much as I think it would be hilarious for you to do it and disconnect me, just to prove it at the end, at the end, just to see if it's fixed is probably better. There you go. You've been one-upped. Best headset has both. Cool. Right. Let's actually get started. So let's think. Where's the best place to get started with talents? I think the big thing for me is how much of a difference talents makes in let's use PvP as a good example. So let's go and have someone in here who will perfectly demonstrate it. Will be the first person I look at will demonstrate it well. No, they've actually got sensible talents. Of course it would be the first person, wouldn't. Here we go. Here's a fantastic example of what I can easily dismiss as saying aren't good talents. And I'll try and explain why. Let's use this skill damage received. And let's not worry about whether skill damage received is good or not. Let's just worry about the fact that they've got 3 skill damage received talents. So the little, I'm sure it's meant to be an exclamation point, but it's very squashed. The little yellow icon you can click on, and it will give you some information. It will give you the base value, which is that 2 lots of 88 plus the 82k, which gives you that base number. And then there's 2 parts. The unlock bonus, which is the one beneath, which I'll start with, is based on the stars of the capo. So for mythicals, it's whoever they're linked to. So being 1,100 is the important part there. Gives you that unlock bonus of 490. The second part is a duplicate bonus. That duplicate bonus is because they've got 3. So the first one, you don't get any duplicate bonus. Second one, you get 1.26, so on and so forth, all the way up to 9.95. But that applies for the total. So it's a multiplier. And it means that that multiplier is really important because it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's this weird scale, which I'm sure someone who's spent a lot of time doing maths has figured out is the correct amount to make it worthwhile. Or they've just picked numbers out of thin air and it just so happens to work, which I don't quite believe. But you never know with developers. Maybe they did a bit of both. So it means that their total for those 3 talents is 201 million. Which again, ignoring the whole is skill damage received worth it or not, that 201 million in the context of a Tentacles who has 34 billion HP and 4.7 billion fight power is a very insignificant number. So even if that was fight power, or like you can see here, they got 205 million HP, how much of a difference does that make in the context of their overall stats? The answer is, well, nothing. There you go, 19 million bonus fight power. It's a drop in the ocean. It doesn't meaningfully add anything to that, to what they do and how they do it. The other side note to that is things like accuracy. You can see doesn't have an unlock bonus or the duplicate bonus. So accuracy, crit chance, and dodge just has this flat amount. So you can use those in a mixture to balance. I'm trying to think of a better way of describing it. You can mix them up more compared to the other talents, but for argument's sake, we're just focusing now on things like, let's say, support skill and fight power and HP. So let us go over to my actual capo page and focus on Izumi as a fantastic example of support skill. So because I have this full set of page, I get 9.95 and that 490, which means the total support skill is 1.76 billion. And that total, compared to Izumi's total fight power of 1.76, and especially as that fight power bonus goes across the whole team, so let's say 5 capos, I know it doesn't quite work out, and I'm doing rounding, so I'm calling it 2 billion each, times 5 is 10 billion, but it equates to, let's say, 10 billion fight power. Again, not quite. But in context of 100, that 20 million fight power that was added to that tentacles, which is irrelevant, adding 10 billion fight power to your team is, compared to a 2.76 billion Izumi, is a lot of bonus. So, the important part there also is you sort of look at it and go, oh, it's all legendary. Actually, there's quite a few rares and epics in there. And if I replace, for example, this last epic slot to fight power, doesn't really matter, it goes from 1.76 to 1.24. So even though that last talent slot is a rare and is only 21k, it's adding a hell of a lot because the whole page and that duplicate bonus has that additional stacking bonus. So it's really important to an extent. There is obviously optimizations you can make, but generally speaking, you want a full page if they are a plus number. Let's look at tentacles and use a counter example. So if I go to set 1 and go dodge chance, if I replace one of these with so the first number there is 43.6. And if I replace one of those with accuracy, I've gone down to 40% dodge, which, again, long story short, is very similar. But then also gives me that full 4.5% accuracy. So when you are carefully looking through other people's talents and you see these splits between, again, let's just use tentacles in this particular example of dodge and accuracy, there is a good reason to split them, but it's a lot more complicated. And for argument's sake, running full dodge chance on tentacles isn't terrible. There's lots of optimizations, lots of things you could potentially do better, but let's not worry about it. So, the other part is there's lots of budget options. So I spent far too long rolling 130k DNA, which for everyone who spends all their DNA constantly goes, how did you manage to save up 130k? Do as I say, don't do as I do. And the other part to that is 130k DNA got me approximately 13 fight power talents, which a full page of talents is 11. So it got me just over a full page of fight power talents. That's just accepting any old fight power talent I could get. So in my opinion, whilst fight power is clearly very strong, it's not necessarily the thing that everyone should be pushing for on every single capo, because you will very rapidly end up with not enough fight power talents, and therefore you'll be stuck without any talents on some capos, for example. So always save them when you see them, but don't desperately try and chase lots of capos with fight power. So then the good counter argument, and I'll go and grab another message whilst I'm speaking about it, is worth chasing alternatives. Hope I pinned this in here. I think I've pinned this in here. I have posted it in here. So I also went through a worked example about fight power and skill damage and damage to players. In fact, let me just copy that message link. Jump. More. Copy message link and post that into chat. Here, go. So, there's always science to be done, Mew. Always more science. So, if you, the link that I've just posted is about Guy and Luca, but it's true for lots of capos that have skill damage abilities. They have this multiplier. I'm not going to go into that now because that's a very long story and a lot more complicated than what I want to go into here. But the important point that I'm making in that post that may be overlooked and in the context of talents is I've just said that fight power is the best but really expensive. What can I do instead? What are the options? If I don't have fight power, what should I be looking for? And the answer from that post is if it's someone like Guy and Luca that's hitting 5 capos with his second skill. So let me just open it up rather than just saying it. So hitting all enemies, skill damage applying, again, let's assume it hits all 5 enemies. Skill damage applying 5 times is still good. So in fact, I've got a page up on Tomo to give you some context. So I could have, and they are all legendary in this particular case, 4.6 billion skill damage, and that's just a flat 4.6 billion to every single thing that Tomo hits with both skills. So in this one, everything opposite a Japan capo, and this one, current and surrounding enemies, which is a lot of hits, and having that much extra damage can make a difference. So whilst you're rolling, always worth saving for capos that have that skill damage skills. Skill damage. The other options, for example, for Kingpin and Nemesis, is having saving a page for Kingpin and damage to Kingpin and Nemesis. It's not as good as fight power, but when you don't have a full set of fight power, this is almost definitely better. So there are 2 options. In the pin post, I talk about damage to players. So again, specifically set up a page using the cog in the right-hand side. So you could set up, let's say, Kingpin and Nemesis. I want to set it to that page 2. So I can set that to this page. So I can use that and use something different. And that damage to Kingpin Nemesis is almost definitely better than other options, at least for Tomo. And then for Arena, the damage to players, the advantage of damage to players is you can hit them with your normal attacks, which adds up over time. So if it's a long fight, that's worth it. If you're just looking for that burst damage, so Tomo specifically, that has that initial burst at the start of the fight, skill damage is probably better. But let's use, maybe choose a better example where they only have at 50% they hit all enemies. Maybe you would want to look, maybe you're expecting that fight, especially with Awakening, to go on much longer, and therefore damage to players is not the first choice. Obviously, you want fight power, but if you don't have access to those fight power because you're rolling DNA elsewhere, you want to have other priorities, you've already spent all your DNA, and you're coming in and going, oh, what should I roll first? Then damage to players might be a viable option. Same with running, and let's use Cheer as a good example. Maybe swapping over to defensive talents. You've got dodge. Depends what you have already in your stash and what you've saved up. So, let's think. The order for rolling them, I would definitely go 3 mythicals, because you use them in lots of places, lots of different ways. Specifically, Tentacles, dodge is really common. Godfather, dodge is really common. Tomo's more difficult, so I'd probably budget it and go for something like damage to players or skill damage as the budget option just to fill up with something. Again, even dodge, full dodge on Tomo for defense is still not bad. So that there's some options. In my case, because I'm focusing 3 capos, it's easier for me to say and the 3 capos. But let's say you're focusing 5, the 5 capos that you're working on, they're the obvious ones to focus talents on first because of that bottom unlock bonus. Because if they're starred up, not only do they have more talent slots, they get that higher bonus. So it's sort of like doubling up. Or stacking, multiplying, however else you want to put it. So the capos that you got leveled up are definitely the focus. So let's pick on Eugenio. Even though I use Eugenio in both Kingpin and Teamfight, I have 0 talents rolled, 0 talents set. Because he's got 2 slots, and even if I did set something, it would offer very little. Doesn't mean you can't roll for them, it's just not the priority. So, yeah, as Funky said, there's the Capos channel that has the suggested talents. The end game PvP meta and what you should be using in this, that, the other is arguably slightly different, but that's far too complicated and far too meta changing. You know, it could be different in a week's time type thing to worry about. But things like, so let's pick on Azumi as a good example, is in most scenarios, support skill will be good. And therefore, since support skill is relatively easy to roll for, you can quite easily fill up an Azumi, a GG, a CMV, a Ava even. You can fill them up with support skills as a option to use. In fact, let me see how much talent I've got here. I have a whole load of stuff I need to delete. I'll do that in a bit. But it's a support skill is relatively easy to roll for. Dodge is relatively easy to roll for. HP is relatively easy to roll for. So if you see those options, they're probably good ones to go for. And then worry or start saving up for those fight power talents to go and chase them after you've got enough to fill up. So when I was doing it, I filled up CMV, I filled up Azumi, I filled up Tentacles, Godfather, and then had budget lineups for talents on Tomo and Chiu until I had, well, it was more the time to sit down and roll all that DNA. But it was the thing I was rolling for last. So Kat asked a good question. I'll move on to that now. Is what should you be looking for when you're rolling? And let's use my. Let's hope Guy and Luca. Okay, so Guy and Luca is fantastic because he's got absolutely nothing, so I can use him as a good example. What you can see at the top is that Talent Vault has 100 limit, and minus Awakening, which gives you 1 more slot. A full page at max stars is 11 talents. So, give or take, you will want 11 or 12 because you want to cope for an extra star, or Awakening, you want 13 of each. So that 100 divided by 13, and I'll do maths so I can give you an exact number rather than saying it's roughly 9. And I said 9 and I meant 8, and it's actually 7.6 if you're saving 13. So you get, let's call it 7 for argument's sake, you get 7 sets of talents that you can set.
It's a dog.
I've given him food. He's just been hyper, and he's also stolen things. So the 100 limit gives you 7 sets that you can save. Again, you can potentially save more. There is the option that I don't recommend, and I'll show you an example of me making, I wouldn't say a mistake, but a choice of spending diamonds. So you can see my tent has a vault of 150. But I'll show you how expensive it is just in a sec. So talent vault, add. So to add the extra 50 is 625 diamonds. So it's a fair amount of diamonds to unlock those extra 50 slots. I would say probably not worth it overall because you can already save 7 and a bit sets of talents anyway. Maybe on the mythicals where you want to save the business talents, which takes up an extra 20 slots, that therefore you're taking off 2 of those and you only have 5 sets left. But even when you only have 5 sets left, 5 sets is quite a lot. So if I were to roll on Guy and Luca, and another thing I'll quickly go over is focus. The reason focus is, I'll use the word bad. The reason focus is not ideal for people who haven't got full sets is if I select this fight power, for example, it will just roll DNA until it gets me the first fight power. If I selected legendary, that would quite happily spend all my DNA and not give me a single thing. If I select rare fight power, it will stop at the first fight power, whether it's rare, epic, or legendary, and just give me that. But it's very expensive. I've seen examples where it spent 30k DNA to give you 1 fight power talent. So you could very easily roll 10 and get nothing, 10k DNA and get nothing. So since it auto discards all your other talents, I think focus is really only for really endgame players who want to save some of their real life time and just go, no, I really want a legendary fight power talent. Don't make me spend, I've got 1 million DNA. Don't make me spend the next 5 hours rolling for it. For everyone else, there's the normal rolls. The difference between 1 and 10, as far as I've tested, as far as I'm aware, doesn't matter from the chance to roll stuff. So I would use 10 times just because it's easier for me to saving some time at least. And I'll roll. Yes, I would like to roll, please. And then what I'm looking for here, I will save anything that I think is useful. So let's go back to that 7 sets. So there's 7 sets I could potentially save. So I will save dodge chance. Guy and Luca doesn't have any healing skills, so I won't save healing. The damage received from Kingpin and Nemesis and the damage received from PvP, which is Hot Rod's statement, are the damage received part of it are, or maybe I've misread that, but the damage received talents are not as good as the damage dealt. Again, I've done a fair amount of testing there. It's not a massive difference, but for argument's sake, it's better. Therefore, if there isn't much of a thing there. And let me reread Hot Rods now that I've read it. Are damage to PvP and Nemesis and reduced damage talents worth using in, say, Gang or Kingpin? Team fight over the suggested talent. Yes. So, as Funky's just said, fight power or the support skill, for example, is the better option. And my suggestion of a budget choice is when you don't have full fight power for Guy and Luca, for example, running him with skill damage is better. I would guess, and I haven't done it specifically for Guy and Luca, but my guess would be for Kingpin and Nemesis, if you were using Guy and Luca, which again I wouldn't recommend, you would be better off with damage to Kingpin talents if you had a full page of it than 3 fight power talents. Because that duplicate bonus is so big across, especially a full page of 11, it really makes a big difference. I got sidetracked. What was I saying? Oh, so I would save dodge chance because that's one of my 7 sets. The damage received, I wouldn't bother saving. The healing doesn't have any effect specifically, but if it was a healing capo, I would save it. Support skill, that would be fantastic on practically any support skill champion. I would love that, but I'm not going to save it because it's Guy and Luca. Although, on that topic, I will say I am going to save, I haven't got any on the page, but let's say HP came up. I will be saving HP, even though it's Guy and Luca, and it's not a recommended talent, because I could, in the future, want to swap Guy and Luca. Because of Awakening, the HP talent specifically, are potentially more useful. We've seen quite a few high-level players, or high-ranked players in Arena start to use HP on Chiyu for the fact that it spreads across all the Japan capos and gives them loads of HP. So it's worth saving stuff that you aren't necessarily wanting to use now, because you're essentially saving DNA for the future, because you do get a small refund by not saving them. But in the grand scheme of things, if you suddenly decide that, I need all accuracy, and you haven't saved any accuracy, it suddenly becomes a lot of DNA to roll full accuracy. Whereas if you're saving in advance, you're sort of having that option. And that's not to say if you're really desperate for DNA, you couldn't come back in and delete them anyway. It just costs you a little bit of your time. So, having said that, I'm actually still going to discard that support skill because I think my 7 doesn't allow me to save support skill, but that one's a good one. Upgrade costs, so all of the business ones. If Guy and Luca was my first legendary on the account, or one of my 5 on an account that I was using, or 3 because it's me, I would save the business talents. Because I'm at a point where I've already got full sets in my 3 mythicals, only my 3 mythicals need the business talent sets. So I'm not going to save it, but again, that would be worth saving. The income would be worth saving. Is there anything else I want to save on here? No, I've said it. And I will save the damage to players. Even though I'm really looking for support skill, even though I'm really looking for fight power, as not support skill, skill damage and fight power are the 2 that I really want on Guy and Luca, because I haven't got any talents, and I'm looking at this as if I only had 10k DNA, I'd much prefer to have damage to players than 3 fight power. So, is there anything else I want to save? I've said that 3 times now, but there we go. Store. Right, roll. So, I will save the dodge chance. I will save the crit hit chance, because again, crit hit could be useful, just isn't useful at the moment, but I think could easily be very good. Because crit hits with, for example, Miranda are really strong. Just not in the current meta and how it works, and long story short. But I still think it has a lot of potential. It also has a lot of potential because it's a percent chance, and maybe you can slot in 2 or 3 into a different page, and lots of logic, but not now, not as a recommended one, but saving it anyway. Skill damage received is another one of those damage received talents that generally I don't think have any purpose. And I'll put that up against HP as an argument and say, would I prefer to receive 42k less damage or have 370k more HP, where HP is more useful directly because it can affect auto attacks and skill damage. And also with Awakening, I can share that HP across other capos. It's like, yeah, I'll take the HP. And yeah, okay, it's legendary HP versus a rare skill damage, but the HP is way bigger and has way more synergy and all the rest of it. Again, that sport skill is just there to taunt me. Again, I'm saving the damage to Kingpin and Nemesis, not because I necessarily want to use it, but as a budget option. If I don't have any other choices, I'll save it. Again, I'm skipping the business talents, healing, damage received, support skill, store, roll, go. And I apologise partly that this is going to become a bit boring, and I will skip over it eventually. But just as I'll do a few examples till I get fight power, let's say, and we can see how much I've rolled. So I've already done 2k's worth of rolls. So I'll save that skill damage, save crit hit chance. And I guess whilst I'm doing this, the other thing I'm skipped over that I didn't really explain very well is rarity does matter. Higher rarity, more damage, better, good. But it's much better to have a full page, even if they're all rare, than having 3 legendary and then having nothing else. So as you can see in my, as I'm selecting, I'm looking for the type rather than the fact they're rare. They can also roll with different numbers. So the crit hit chance, the max chance is 5%. But again, because we're looking at budgets, because we're looking at, people who are just starting, I don't care whether that says 4%, whether it says 4.9% or it says 5. I'm saving that crit hit chance. Like that 32k skill damage, I'm saving it because it is skill damage rather than because it's a good number for that roll. That's all good. Store. So this is 4k spent. dodge chance, dodge chance. Oh, fight power. There you go. So I can stop now and feel happy that I've got 1 fight power. And I've got a lot of dodge as another side note. So when I said dodge is more common, you can see there's another support skill. So in 4K rolls, I've got a fair amount of dodge, got a fair amount of support skill if I were saving them. Only 1 fight power, and it's rare. So contextually, and I think that's quite lucky to get it that quickly. Fight power is very difficult. So I'm just going to store that now. Did I miss anything? No. Good, right. And as you can see there, it's giving me the refund every time. I just skipped over that screen rather than explaining it. But you'll get it whether you choose to or not. You just get it saved. So there you go. I've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 dodge chance in 4K. Again, that's probably the upper end of what you'd expect, especially to be legendary, but it's a lot easier to roll that sort of stuff. So it's much more valuable to focus on saving them. And I wouldn't be above running dodge chance on Guy and Luca. Not my first choice, but if I only had 4K DNA to spend, I'd much prefer to have those dodge chance than nothing, or 1 fight power talent and nothing else. Because the dodge can still do something useful. So that mostly covers what I'm rolling, why I'm rolling it that way. We've touched on the order to roll it for. So again, rather than naming specific capos, but speaking more generally, you're looking for capos that would use support skill. The things that use HP, like Omega, scale really hard with that. Things like Ava, who can make use of the support skill and the dodge. So you're rolling, when you roll, you're saving 2 sets at the same time. You're almost getting double the value. Again, I know that's not how it works. I know that's not maths, but let's not worry about it. It feels better rolling for Ava because there's more to save that you think, oh yeah, I'm saving this and it's really good. Also realised I've got the wrong chat open in here, but I don't think anyone's typing in the voice chat channel. Doesn't look like it. All good. And we've been over through rarity doesn't matter. Again, it does sort of matter, but isn't important. We've gone over setting up different pages, so I'll go over that just quickly again. Let's use an example of someone that I've got set up. Let's use tentacles. So I have a business page set up with income and production time. I've got one with pure upgrade cost. There's lots of little tips and tricks you can do with business talents, but I'm not going to worry about them for now. I've got a main combat talent set, which is just dodge chance for PvP, and then I've got a damage to Kingpin and Nemesis, which is for Kingpin and Nemesis. And then I've got the cog, which is the top right yellow cog with arrows that you can set up different pages. So I can set up Kingpin and Teamfight as set 2, which is that Kingpin Teamfight one, and set 1 is for everything else: Gang War, Jailbreak, Arena, Cigar Fights. You can tweak that. You can set up 3 pages. I'm sure there'll be lots of capos that I've got really random setups because I was trying stuff I haven't bothered fixing. I'm sure if I look at some of my talent vaults, I've got all sorts of weird stuff set up. One thing I haven't covered, which has reminded me very conveniently. Let me go back to my pinned message on my laptop. One moment. So it's gang help in chat pinned. The 7 sets are. Yes, you're very hyper, Cookie. I know. He's very hyper. He's very hyper. You are. You're very excited, puppy. Do you need some water, bud? Hey, do you need some water? I'm in circles upstairs in the doorway. I'm barking. Is IA going to get some water for him? IA's going to get a fucking tranquilizer for you. I hope everyone didn't hear that and heard that all at the same time. So let me conveniently copy and paste something here. Cookie. So the 7 sets I would say, generically speaking, are accuracy, critical hit, dodge chance. If they're a support skill capo, then support skills. HP, fight power. So that's 5 sets that I've just said that are the 5 sets generically, I would say, for everyone. I would say the support skill, specifically for support capos, I would say the fight power skill damage for those with damage skills generally. I would keep the damage to Kingpin Nemesis, probably actually on practically everyone. Unless they are specifically already got a full set of fight power or the support skill capos, for example. And that is roughly 7 sets. So there is an advantage. And again, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but it's lazy for me, where I've got 150 set, where you could probably just buy, let's say, 20 for, let's say, just the 3 mythical capos. And you could therefore have your business talents and 7 sets of 13 of each of the other ones that you wanted to keep. That way, let's say the meta changes and everyone wants to start running crit hit, or Awakening shows that HP is particularly strong, which, as a side note, I do actually think HP is going to become more and more meta, specifically at least for the Awakening capos. And again, at least having it as an option is a good one. Saving those fight power talents. So let's use let's use Omega as an example. It is very unlikely that meta change so much that Omega will suddenly want fight power talents. However, if I do a capo swap and I swap Omega with Guy and Luca, for example, Guy and Luca, who's been swapped with Omega that had the fight power talent saved, will now have fight power ready and raring to go. So because fight power is so hard to get in the first place, it's worth saving those fight power talents, even if you don't want to use them. Because yes, they're using up some vault space, but realistically, how expensive is that opportunity cost for having that vault space saved as fight power talents? The answer is, well, at least in my opinion, it's well worth that value. Cool, right. I think I've covered everything there. So, Pound's last question: can you throw something in there regarding synergy? Like, why would you put support skill on Zumi opposed to skill damage? Okay, so the reason the suggested talents are because of how the game mechanics function. So I'll pick a odd example first, which probably isn't the best way of doing it, but it's the easy one to illustrate. Is Miranda. Miranda has a buff skill and a buff skill. And you think, well, support talents will work on Miranda because the support skill talent adds to buff skills. Fortunately, the game mechanics don't work like that, and therefore Miranda doesn't actually function with support talents whatsoever. Support talents only work on capos with adds some percentage fight power. So it will work on CMV. Wrong thing, there we go. Even though it's 6.8%, still some fight power will trigger. Same with Izumi. Same with Ava, because that's 20%. But won't work on Miranda. Now, I'd have to go through the entire list and say will work, won't work. We'll probably need to do more testing. But I have tested Miranda. I can confirm support skill talents do not work. That's why Miranda suggested is fight power or crit chance or dodge or HP or something different, because support skill doesn't work. But for those capos that do have that support skill, because that number's so big relative to, at least for me, my context, that 1.76 billion compared to the 2.76 billion fight power is an incredible bonus. If we look at Guy and Luca, skill damage, they need to have that damage tag to do. If it's only targeting one enemy, skill damage, since it's a flat amount, isn't as valuable as, let's say, where it's hitting 5 enemies, or again, all enemies. So maybe it's not actually hitting 5 because some of them may already be dead. But if it's hitting 5 of them, you're getting 5 times the use out of that skill damage. The fight power shows on the support on the card. So let's just swap over to Tomo so I can demonstrate that. So Tomo's current Gift of the Samurai is 22.75 billion. And if I swap over, it's this first talent set that changes. So if I swap over to set 3, which was that skill damage, it will say 4.6 bonus damage, except this will say 16.22, so it's gone down a lot. Mechanically, how it works is that damage is 16.22 plus a flat 4.6 to each enemy. Same with the Shadow Strike. So if you notice, the base damage on Shadow Strike is only 7.6, so adding 4.6 to that is a hell of a lot as a percentage. But if I just swap back to set 1, which is a much smaller number, oops, wrong one, much smaller number, 1.4, so roughly a third. Maths, yeah. 3, 1, 4, 4.5, yeah, roughly a third. Even though it's roughly a third, that's gone from 16 to 22 because it's got a multiplier. So that fight power is, maths times 6. I can't do it now. Too much difficult mental maths. A multiplier, which takes it up beyond 16 plus 4.6, is now 22. Similarly, and this is actually slightly less damage, is the 7 that was 7 and a bit plus 4.6 is 11 and a bit, is now actually 10.75. So the skill damage is actually better on Tomo's Shadow Strike by a marginal amount, but it is better on the Gift of the Samurai, which in my opinion is what Tomo is actually all about. Its skill damage is worse, fight power is better by, again, a decent margin. So, and I think Gift of the Samurai is more important to have more damage on. But it does mean that skill damage is viable on some skills. If I remember correctly, Chiu's scaling on light stun is awful. And therefore, if you just wanted to worry about the light stun ability, which you shouldn't, or I wouldn't suggest it, but hypothetically, if it's the only thing you cared about, skill damage would be good on Chiu. But I don't do it, just as an example. But it would offer more than the fight power, because if I go over to a fight power talent set page, if I go to set 1 should be fight power, set 1 is fight power, that 700 million has gone up to 1.18 billion. But hypothetically, if I had a 4.6 billion skill damage, it would just add 4.6 billion to all enemies, which is way better than that fight power's just added. Like, way better. So it's just something to bear in mind. The damage, the other advantage the fight power offers is in combat when they're doing every round they do that attack, which I would describe as an auto attack. You add the fight power. Again, I need to do more testing to find the exact number of where that breakpoint is and how that all works, but let's not worry about those tiny details and look at the bigger picture and say, yeah, fight power is still good, but sometimes alternatives fill in, just because fight power is so difficult to roll. And I guess I will selfishly also go over to do a bit of arena, just as an example of why I pick on people who have what I would describe in inverted commas as bad talents and how much of a difference that makes. Now, I am also slightly cheating because the attacker has the advantage of being able to set up better lineups of who you're playing against and all the rest of it. So it's not just the fact that they have bad talents. So this person hasn't even got a full set of talents on their tentacles. They've got 6 set and they're 1,100, so they could have 11. They also have skill damage, and tentacles has precisely 0 skill damage. They also have all legendary, which implies that they're probably potentially only saving it, or maybe they've just set their page incorrectly. So let's just go and have a look at the other ones. So accuracy and fight power. So that 122 million fight power compared to the one that I'd set up, even though I've got the same number of legendary and like one more epic than them, but I've got the rest in rares, is 1.5, just less than 1.5 billion fight power, which is a lot compared to 122. And yeah, sure, I'm missing out on the 21% accuracy, but how important is it? And my opinion is, well, massive. Their Chiyu again has got this weird split and hasn't got full sets. Maybe they're only saving epic and legendary. Maybe they've rolled for lots of fight power and that's why they're really suffering. Their Ava again has got this weird setup where they've got 85 million fight power, like in the context of them having 3 billion fight power. What is that 85 doing? Nothing. Support skill again, 49 million. What's it doing? Context, nothing. Muertos, so Eugenio again, some dodge chance, fight power. So they've got a really weird setup. They haven't got full talent sets. They've only seemingly, I don't think they've got a single rare equipped. They've got one rare fight power talent equipped. So again, maybe they've made some mistakes in the past. So let's go bully them because it's fun. And I don't want to now spend an hour talking about PvP positioning, but I'd love to. I didn't check some stuff which I should have done, but it's all good. It's all good. It only does 19, so that's fine. So I can stick that there. I can do that will swap over there, so that's fine. And who am I hiding? None of them, that's fine. Cool. This is also the great example of where I say that it's going to be easy because they've got terrible talents and I lose. So let's bear in mind that I am not perfect to this kind of stuff, and I'm fighting 11.6 billion firepower versus 20 billion. But let's go for it anyway because science, and that's where I keep saying to me, I'm doing science is my excuse for losing. But I believe there's a decent chance I'll win that. And the answer is it was actually really easy. I appreciate it was 6 times speed and really difficult to follow what was actually going on there, but PvP tutorials are entirely different to kettle of fish and wasn't the point I was making. Picks on an opponent who had, again, I'll use that quotation marks, bad talents, bad setup in the sense of, they still had fight power, they still had dodge chance, they are good talents. But because of the way they've set up those pages, 50 million fight power is just nothing and has no value compared to even if they've just set full dodge chance. So I can quite happily say, again, let's claim that and go back to the log so I can point at some capos. You look at their lineup, Ava, Chiyu, Tomo, Tentacles. The only one that's questionable is Eugenio, but minus Eugenio, that's a perfectly reasonable PvP lineup. So was it I've just picked on someone who's got rubbish capos? Well, no, not really. It does positioning matter a lot? Well, yes, and I should have gone through gear and all the rest of it. There's a long set of story there. And you can see the person that actually carried from my lineup was Tomo, did 126 billion damage, which was a significant advantage going into that fight. Cool. Anything else I can think of talent-wise? It's probably it. So I'll happily open up to questions, or if anyone thinks I've missed anything. The pinned messages that I was talking about, I pasted into the chat. I think I actually pasted the messages that Mia wrote up for the actual rolling guide. And then I posted my one about the PvP damage. They're actually all pinned in Gang Help and Chat. What's it called again? Gang Help and Chat. Wow, I actually remembered it. That surprises me. They're all pinned there, so feel free to go and read them at your leisure. If you then read them tomorrow and go through them and go, it doesn't make any sense, and you've got questions about it, or you think of a scenario where we haven't covered it, or think there's something could be improved or whatever, just let me know, let Miu know, and other people, like Tag Question Guru, for example, and someone will happily help when they can. But whilst I'm here, has anyone got any questions? preferably starting specifically on talents. I think technically we said talents and gear, but my voice is going, so I don't particularly want to start talking about gear for another hour from now, because I will. I know what I'm like, and people will likely have questions anyway, so go for it. If you don't want to talk, that's entirely understandable. Feel free to use the chat, which is in this channel, the chat little bubble icon thing, or feel free to type into the VC General channel. I have both open. I say I have both open, I've closed one by accident. I'm now not lying, I now have both open. Or feel free to talk.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be offended if somebody else wants to chat rather than type. And if no one has any questions specifically relating to